Rosa. Thomas Granger stopped mid-step, the name barely more than a breath. The woman was curled beneath the metal bench of a bus stop, barely distinguishable from the heap of blankets and worn fabric wrapped around her. A frigid wind swept through the intersection, but she didn't flinch, didn't stir. Her fingers were exposed, raw and red, gripping a plastic shopping bag like it held her last chance. Her hair peeked out from a knit hat, matted, familiar, unmistakable. Thomas took a step closer, heart suddenly pounding. It couldn't be. But it was. Rosa Delgado. His former housekeeper. The same Rosa who brewed his black coffee at 6 a.m. sharp. Who folded his shirts with crisp precision. Who never spoke more than necessary. Who had worked in his mansion for 3 years. And whom he'd fired 3 weeks ago. No warning. No second chance. She'd missed 2 days of work. His estate manager had mentioned it casually, irritated. No call, no excuse. I think she's checked out. So Thomas had signed the release papers, moved on to more important meetings. Now here she was, half frozen, barely conscious, sleeping in the street like the city had discarded her. A hospital envelope protruded from the plastic bag. Her other hand clutched a rubber-banded stack of bills, mostly singles, some coins, crushed and damp. Maybe $80. He didn't realize his breath was fogging until he knelt down beside her. Rose, it's me. It's Mr. Granger. Can you hear me? Her face was pale, lips tinged blue. Her eyes didn't open. He shrugged off his cashmere coat, barely noticing the cold as he wrapped it tightly around her. The guilt rose like bile in his throat. How had he not asked why she missed work? Not once. She had always been there. Punctual. Quiet. Unseen. Until she vanished. And he hadn't even wondered where she went. He grabbed his phone and called 911. Yes, I need an ambulance. Clementine Square, right by the 9th Street bus shelter. It's a woman. She's unconscious. She's freezing. Hurry. He stayed with her until they arrived, kneeling in snow and concrete grit, one hand gripping hers. The ambulance came in minutes, but it felt like hours. The EMTs worked quickly. One of them, a woman with dark eyes and steady hands, turned to Thomas after checking Rosa's vitals. She's lucky, she said. Another hour and she could have gone into full cardiac arrest. Thomas didn't reply. He just followed the stretcher into the ambulance, silent, shaken. At the hospital, they admitted Rosa immediately. Thomas stood at the front desk, refusing to sit, refusing to be ushered away. When asked for insurance information, he simply handed over his black Amex. Whatever she needs, he said. Then he sat down, coatless, tie askew, and waited. The hospital smell was sharp and unforgiving, antiseptic and regret. He remembered her last day now. He'd been in the breakfast room, reading emails. Rosa was supposed to be there by 6:15. She wasn't. By 6:20, the estate manager was texting replacements. No one had called her. No one had cared. She was just dismissed. Because that's what people like him did. They made swift decisions. Efficient ones. Ones that didn't ask questions. Thomas had always thought of himself as a fair man. But fairness, he realized now, had never meant understanding. A nurse finally emerged hours later. She's stable, she said. Severe hypothermia. But we got to her in time. She's resting now. Can I see her? She's unconscious. But yes. Just a minute. Thomas stepped into the dim hospital room, heart tight. Machines beeped gently. Rosa lay on the narrow bed, her face no longer blue, but still far too pale. Her frame looked smaller than he remembered. He sat beside her, silently. After a moment, he took the crumpled hospital invoice from his pocket, the one he'd pulled from her bag, smoothed it gently against the edge of the nightstand. Beside it, he placed the rubber-banded stack of dollar bills. And then his business card. On the back, he scribbled a few words. You should never have had to fight this alone. Let me help. He didn't expect forgiveness. He didn't even know if she'd want to see him again. But something had cracked open inside him. Something that felt dangerously close to grief. He sat with her a little longer. Then stood. And as he walked out into the empty hallway, past the flickering lights and echoing tile floors, Thomas Granger, billionaire, builder of empires, realized one devastating truth. He had been blind. And for the first time in his life, he wanted to see. Rosa opened her eyes to the soft hum of machines and a ceiling she didn't recognize. She blinked slowly, throat dry, limbs heavy. Her fingers twitched against the sheets, and she felt the prick of an 4 in her arm. Everything was too white, too clean, too warm. Her first thought was confusion, then panic. Where was her bag? She turned her head with effort. It was there, on the bedside table, her plastic bag with the folded hospital invoice, her mother's prescription slip, and the small bundle of crumpled cash. Except the cash was no longer crumpled. And there was a coat. Not hers. A coat far too expensive. Dark wool. Cashmere. And next to it, a card. Rosa stared at it. Thomas Granger. She closed her eyes. It wasn't a dream. He had seen her. Like that. Like this. The nurse came in a few minutes later with a clipboard and a kind smile. "You're lucky," she said gently. "You were found just in time." Rosa didn't respond. She was too busy remembering. 3 weeks ago, her mother had taken a turn. Breathing shallow, heart rate dropping. The hospital needed full payment or they would discharge her early. Rosa had begged for more hours. She took an overnight job cleaning a warehouse, then folded towels at a motel before running straight to the Granger estate. That morning she was 8 minutes late. She still remembered the look on the estate manager's face. Annoyed, disapproving. Thomas hadn't even looked up from his tablet. Just said, "She's dismissed." No questions. No hesitation. Rosa had simply nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't explain. She had too much dignity for that. Instead, she gathered her things, including the hidden bag under the laundry sink, and walked out of the only place she had ever felt remotely safe. Now she was back in a bed. A real bed, but not by choice. Not because she was better. Because she had collapsed. And he had found her. Of all people. Later that afternoon, she heard footsteps outside the hospital door. She didn't turn her head. She didn't have to. "Rosa." His voice was quiet. "Careful." She stayed still. Thomas stepped inside slowly. He looked different. No tie. Hair slightly out of place. Eyes tired. "I wasn't sure if you'd be awake," he said. She said nothing. He moved closer but not too close. "I saw you last night. In the square. I didn't know. I had no idea." Her voice, when it came, was hoarse. No one asked. The words landed like a stone in a still pond. Thomas swallowed. "You're right." She turned her head finally, meeting his gaze. "Did you come to fire me again?" He winced. "No. I came because I should have asked. I should have noticed something was wrong." Silence stretched between them. He reached for the card on the table. "I left this for you. Along with the hospital bill." Her fingers closed around the paper. She glanced at it, the neat handwriting on the back. "You should never have had to fight this alone. Let me help." Rosa looked at him again, her eyes dry but unreadable. "I don't want charity," she said softly. "This isn't charity," he replied. "It's an apology. It's guilt, probably. But it's also recognition." "Of what?" "Of your dignity," he said quietly. "Of the things I failed to see." Another pause. Rosa turned the card in her hands. Thomas looked down at the coat. "It's cold out there," he murmured. "I don't want you back on the street. I don't want to be back there either." He nodded. "When you're released, I want you to come back. Not to work. Just come back to the house." Think." Rosa blinked. "To your mansion?" "To the guest room," he said gently. "No obligation. No expectations. Just warmth. Just safety." She studied his face, trying to see if there was any catch. There didn't seem to be one. But the walls she'd built were tall. "I'll think about it," she said at last. He nodded, quietly relieved. "I'll check back tomorrow." He turned to leave. Just before he stepped out, she spoke again. "My mother passed away. 4 days ago." Thomas froze. He turned back, face pale. "Rosa, I'm so sorry." She didn't cry. She simply said, "I worked 3 jobs to pay for her oxygen. That morning I was late. It was because I'd just finished cleaning floors at a warehouse and missed the first train. I ran all the way. I was sweating. Thomas said nothing. She looked at him, calm and steady. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't irresponsible. I was tired. He nodded slowly. I believe you. I don't need you to believe me now, she said. I needed you to believe me then. And with that, she turned her head to the window. Thomas stood there for a moment longer, eyes burning with something he couldn't name. Then he left the room, silent. But not unmoved. That night, Rosa sat alone in the quiet room. The nurse brought soup and warm tea. She didn't eat right away. She looked at the card again. Then at the coat. She pulled it tighter around her shoulders. And for the first time in weeks, she felt something besides cold. She felt seen. It was nearly midnight when Thomas returned to the Granger estate. The mansion stood in its usual silence, immaculate, symmetrical, unfeeling. Outside, the hedges had been trimmed with perfect symmetry. Inside, not a cushion was out of place. Clean lines. Cold marble. No trace of life. Just as he had designed it. But tonight, it felt hollow. He didn't go to his study. Didn't open his laptop. Instead, he stood in the kitchen, the same one Rosa had cleaned every morning, and looked around as if seeing it for the first time. Something gnawed at him. Something Rosa had said. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't irresponsible. I was tired. His mind wouldn't stop turning. She'd said she'd worked 3 jobs. That she'd been late because she'd run from a warehouse shift. That she'd missed the train. And then she said something else. I don't want to be back there either. Not go back. Be back. Thomas frowned. He stepped out of the kitchen and walked through the long hallway toward the utility wing, a part of the house he hadn't set foot in for years. His staff handled everything back there. He never needed to notice it. But tonight, he turned the corner and opened the laundry door. It was dark and stale, unused since Rosa left. He flicked on the light. The scent of detergent and dust clung to the air. At first, he saw nothing. Then, behind the dryer, in the narrow space between the wall and the cleaning supply shelves, he saw it. A thin, folded blanket. A pillow tucked inside a plastic bag. And next to it, a small cardboard box. Thomas crouched slowly. The box had her name written on the lid in faded black marker. Rosa. Inside were a few pieces of folded clothing, a cracked travel mug, and a framed photo of an older woman with kind eyes. Her mother. And underneath all of it, the hospital invoice. Not a copy. The original. Folded, creased, smudged. The red, final notice stamp was still visible through the faded paper. Thomas stared at it. She'd been living here. In the laundry room. Not just sleeping. Living. While he drank imported espresso and scrolled through global markets, she had been curling up on a floor behind the dryer, probably too ashamed to ask for help. Or maybe too used to being invisible. Thomas stood up, heart pounding. This wasn't just guilt anymore. This was responsibility. He returned to the main hallway and opened the linen closet. Inside were 5 extra down comforters, 3 unused space heaters, 2 full duvets still wrapped in plastic. And Rosa had been sleeping on tile with a single blanket and a pillow in a bag. He sat down on the hallway bench, suddenly breathless. The shame hit like a wave. Not just because she'd suffered, but because he'd never wondered where she went when she left for the day. Never asked. Never cared. Just assumed she had somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. People like Rosa always found a way, right? That was the story he'd told himself. That was how he'd avoided seeing the truth. The next morning, Thomas called off all meetings. His assistant was confused. But we have the merger briefing at. Cancel it, he said. I'll reschedule myself. He hung up before she could argue. Then he walked down to the same laundry room and stood in silence. The blanket was still there. He didn't move it. Not yet. Instead, he sat on the floor. And waited. That afternoon, Rosa was discharged from the hospital. She hadn't told him she was leaving that day, but when she stepped out into the brisk air, a black sedan was already waiting at the curb. She hesitated. The driver rolled down the window. Miss Delgado? Mr. Granger asked me to take you home. She almost laughed. But she got in. She didn't know why. When the car pulled into the circular driveway of the Granger estate, Rosa gripped the door handle, pulse quickening. The last time she left this place, she had a trash bag of belongings slung over one shoulder and nowhere to go. Now she was being driven back like some kind of guest. The front door opened before she reached it. Thomas stood there, coatless. His eyes were tired. Not performative. Not trying to impress. Just real. "Hi," he said simply. She nodded once. "I'll show you to your room," he added, stepping aside. He led her not to the servants' quarters, not to the cramped guest wing, but to the east sunroom, the only room in the house with soft yellow light even in winter. Inside, a small fire crackled in the corner fireplace. A modest bed had been made up. Not a cot. A real bed. With quilts. A wooden dresser. A chair by the window. Next to the nightstand was the same framed photo from the laundry box. Her mother. Rosa stepped forward slowly, fingers brushing the glass frame. Her breath caught. She turned. "You went through my things?" He didn't flinch. "Yes." "Why?" "To understand what I ignored." Rosa sat on the edge of the bed. It was warm. Comfortable. Too comfortable. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I know." She looked up at him. "Then why?" "Because I found the room," he said softly. "The one no one knew about. The one where you slept." Rosa blinked. "I sat in it for 2 hours last night," he said. "I needed to feel what I never let myself see." She looked away. "You don't owe me anything, Rosa," he continued. "You don't even have to stay. But the door is open. It wasn't before. And I think it should have been." Silence fell. The fire popped. Outside, wind swept through the trees. Inside, Rosa took a long breath. Then she lay back slowly, the quilt wrapping around her like a memory that wasn't quite pain anymore. And for the first time in weeks, she slept. Not hidden. Not afraid. Just warm. The sunroom glowed with pale morning light when Rosa woke. For a few moments, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw the fireplace. The framed photo. The folded cardigan at the foot of the bed. And she remembered. The Granger estate. The sunroom. She was back. But not as a maid. Not as anything really. Just present. Thomas hadn't come in since last night. The quiet had stretched long, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Rosa was used to silence. Silence didn't judge. Silence didn't dismiss. Still, there was a difference between being left alone and being seen, then left to choose. She sat up and looked around the room. Someone had placed a tray by the door, breakfast. Toast, poached eggs, coffee, a peeled orange in a bowl. She hadn't had coffee in days. Maybe weeks. She touched the side of the mug. Still warm. A note rested beside it. "Take your time. No expectations." Later that morning she walked the hallways again. Not as a housekeeper. Not with gloves or a mop or a schedule. Just as someone rediscovering a space she once inhabited without being noticed. She passed the staircase where she'd once scrubbed the banister every Saturday morning. The main hallway mirror, where she used to catch a glimpse of herself in passing, but never long enough to feel real. And then the kitchen. She paused there. The countertops gleamed, untouched. The fridge was stocked. But something about it all felt colder than the weather outside. She walked back to the sunroom and sat on the window bench. Just before noon, there was a knock. It was soft. Respectful. She looked up as Thomas stepped inside, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one to her without a word and sat across the room, in the chair by the bookcase. They sat that way for several minutes. No words. Only the quiet steam rising from ceramic and the distant rustle of leaves outside. Then finally he spoke. "I keep thinking about what I said, or didn't say, the day you left." She looked at him, expression unreadable. "I had no idea you were sleeping in the laundry room," he continued. "No idea you were caring for your mother. Or working nights. I didn't ask. I should have." Rosa said nothing. She just sipped her coffee. He swallowed. "There's no excuse for that. But I want to make something clear." He set his cup down gently on the table. "I'm not asking you to come back to clean. I'm not asking you to pick up where things left off." Rosa raised an eyebrow. Then why am I here? Thomas leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Because I need help. That caught her attention. Not cleaning, he clarified. Something else. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket and slid it across the table. She hesitated before picking it up. Inside were papers, typed, clean, official-looking. The heading read, Director of Employee Welfare, Granger Enterprises. She stared at the title. This is a joke, she said flatly. It's not. You want me to manage welfare? I want someone who knows what it means to go unseen, to be overlooked, to be tired and still show up. She didn't respond. He continued, Our company has over 800 employees. Most of them in roles people forget. Custodial, kitchen staff, night maintenance, mailroom. No one ever listens to them. No one ever asks. And you think I'll fix that? She said, voice calm but sharp. I think you already see what I don't, he replied. And I want to build something better. But I can't do it without someone who understands from the ground up. She closed the folder. I don't want a pity position. It's not, he said. It comes with full authority to assess, report, restructure. You'd answer to no one but me. You'd have real power. I'm not offering this to be generous. I'm offering it because I know I'm not qualified. Silence fell again. Rosa stood, walked to the window. She looked out at the long driveway, the wrought iron gate in the distance, the trimmed hedges lining the property like guards. She remembered walking down that path with her belongings in a plastic bag. No ride. No money. No goodbye. Now she was being offered an office. And a voice. She turned back to him. You could have done this without me, she said. Found someone with a degree. A consultant. Thomas nodded. But they wouldn't know what it feels like to sleep behind a dryer. That stopped her. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, finally, her voice softened. I'll think about it. He nodded. That's all I ask. He stood and walked toward the door. Before he left, he paused. One more thing. She looked at him. I found your mother's photo, he said. It's in the drawer. I hope it's okay that I put it there. Rosa's gaze shifted to the nightstand. She nodded once. Thomas hesitated, then stepped out, closing the door behind him. Rosa sat down again, the folder in her lap. She didn't open it right away. She let it rest there, heavy with meaning. An offer not loud, not forced, but quiet and real. Rosa stepped into the kitchen just after 6. The lights were off. The house was quiet. She didn't touch anything. Just stood in the middle of the tiled floor, eyes scanning the room. Every corner was familiar. The drawer that stuck. The sink that dripped. The oven light that flickered when you opened it too fast. She walked over to the refrigerator, opened it, then closed it again. There was nothing she needed. Just habit. Footsteps echoed behind her. Thomas leaned against the doorframe, holding 2 mugs. I figured you might come in here. I didn't mean to. You don't have to explain. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 6:07. He followed her eyes. You're early. Force of habit. He offered her a mug. She took it. He nodded at the table. Sit. They sat across from each other in silence. You ever sit here? She asked. He shook his head. No. I used to eat here before anyone woke up. Just 5 minutes. Toast. Tea. You were always gone before I even came down. I had to be. The new cleaning shift started at 7. He nodded. I never thought to ask. You didn't need to. He hesitated. I should have. Rosa didn't reply. She took another sip of coffee. Then she stood and walked toward the hallway. He followed. She stopped outside the linen closet. Opened it. Looked inside. Everything was stacked perfectly. Labeled. She touched one of the shelves. I used to sleep downstairs, she said. But I'd come up here for the extra blankets when the floor got too cold. Thomas looked at her. You carried these down every night? She nodded. And back up in the morning. He didn't speak. Rosa stepped away from the closet and headed toward the back corridor, the servants' wing. She passed the storage room, the pantry, and paused outside the laundry area. The door creaked when she pushed it open. The mattress was gone. The box too. A folded sheet sat in the corner. Thomas stayed behind her. "I had the room cleaned," he said. "I noticed. I left one thing," he added. "Come with me." They walked upstairs. Past the office. Past the east hallway. He opened the door to a small study, unused for years. A new bed had been placed in the corner. There was a shelf. A reading lamp. A chair by the window. On the wall, hung in a simple frame, was the photo of Rosa's mother. Rosa stared. "I wasn't sure where to put it," he said. "But I thought this room, it deserved to be used for something that mattered." She turned to face him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I didn't before." He looked down at the floor, then back at her. "You slept in a supply room while I hosted fundraisers in the ballroom. I can't change that. But I can do better now." Rosa folded her arms. "I'm still thinking about the job." "I know. I don't want to be a symbol." "You won't be. I don't want to sit in meetings just to make things look nice. You'd have full authority. And if I say no? Then you say no. You still have a room. And coffee." She looked at him for a long time. Then turned back to the photo. "I'll let you know." He nodded. "I'm heading out," he said. "Meeting at the office." She didn't answer. He left the door open behind him. That evening, when Thomas came back, Rosa wasn't in the sunroom. He checked the kitchen. Empty. The laundry room. Empty. Then he found her in the new study, sitting on the chair by the window. The folder was open in her lap. She looked up. "I have conditions," she said. "Go on. I want to talk to the staff. All of them. No filters. Done. I want full access to internal files. Reports. Complaints. Unedited. Okay. And I want you to back me up. Publicly. Not just when it's convenient. You'll have it." She closed the folder. "Then I'll try." Thomas didn't smile. But he nodded. "Good." He turned to leave. "Thomas," she said. He paused. "Don't mess this up." "I won't." Thomas sat in his home office, staring at an old photo frame on the bookshelf. He hadn't noticed it in years. It was his mother, in her nurse uniform, smiling, holding his hand when he was maybe 6. He picked it up, turned it over. A handwritten note on the back. "Kindness isn't weakness. It's courage when no one's watching. Mom." He sat down and didn't move for a long time. Later that morning, Rosa entered the main hallway. Thomas was in the study with a notepad and pen. He looked up. "You want to talk about the role?" She shook her head. "I want to know why." "Why what? Why this job? Why now? Why me?" He leaned back in the chair. "Because you know what it's like to be invisible." "That's not an answer. That's a tagline." Thomas set down the pen. "When I was 11, my mom worked 3 hospital shifts a week. Our heat broke in the middle of December. She wrapped me in blankets and told me it would be okay." Rosa stayed silent. "She got sick. Pneumonia. Refused to stop working. Said we needed the money." He paused. "She collapsed at work. They called me from a payphone. I was at the corner store buying instant noodles. By the time I got to the hospital, she was already gone." Rosa looked at him. "I buried her with money I didn't have. Then I swore I'd never need anyone again." He stood up, walked to the window. "That worked for a while. I built companies. Made money. Cut anyone who slowed me down." "You cut me," Rosa said. He nodded. "I did." She folded her arms. "And now, I see what I missed. Not just with you. With a lot of people." Rosa looked around the room. "This house is full of silence. I designed it that way." "Why?" "Because noise reminds you someone's there. And I didn't want to remember." She stepped forward. "Well, someone is here now." He met her eyes. "Then let's fix it." That afternoon, Thomas brought her to his company's downtown office. She hadn't been there before. The receptionist froze when she saw them enter together. Thomas ignored the stares. He led Rosa to the elevator. Pressed executive level. They rode up in silence. At the top floor, he guided her past the boardroom, past glass walls and framed awards. "This is your office," he said. She walked in. A clean desk. A computer. A shelf with no books. A nameplate not yet installed. She looked around. "I don't want flowers. I don't want fanfare. You'll get none. Where's HR? Downstairs. Where's janitorial? Basement. I'll start there." Thomas nodded. "I'll tell the managers to expect you." "No," Rosa said. "Don't. I want them unprepared." He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Understood." That night, Rosa returned to the sunroom. She sat by the fire with her notebook, scribbling names she remembered from the estate. Cleaners. Drivers. Gardeners. People no one talked to but expected everything from. There was a knock. Thomas stepped in. Held out a cup of tea. She took it. He sat across from her. She flipped the notebook closed. "You said your mom worked 3 shifts?" He nodded. "Night nurse." "What did she want for you?" He thought for a moment. "To grow up kind. Not rich. She'd be disappointed." "I know." He looked down. "But maybe not anymore." Rosa didn't answer. She just drank her tea. Then, without a word, she slid her notebook across the table. He glanced at the title, Things No One Saw. She pointed at one name. "Start here." He nodded. "Start here," Rosa said. Thomas leaned in. "David Rojas." "Who is he?" "He worked nights. Cleaned your executive garage. I talked to him once. Said he hadn't had a sick day in 4 years." Thomas frowned. "I've never met him." Rosa nodded. "That's the point." Thomas opened his phone. "I'll have HR." "No," she cut in. "You'll come with me. No assistant. No camera. Just you." He hesitated. "All right." She stood. "Tomorrow. 7 a.m. The next morning, they walked through the back entrance of Granger Tower, down to sublevel 2. It smelled like cleaning fluid and engine oil. Rosa led the way. They passed rows of parked cars, silent and gleaming. One man was mopping the far corner near the loading dock. "David," she called. The man looked up, startled. Then froze when he saw Thomas. "Sir." David wiped his hands on his pants. "I didn't know." Rosa stepped forward. "We're not here to inspect. Just to talk." David glanced at Thomas, unsure. Rosa continued. "How long you been here?" 11 years, he said. "Started after my brother passed. Had to support his kids." Thomas blinked. "You raised them?" "Still am. They're in high school now." Thomas extended his hand. "Thank you for staying with us." David took it slowly. "I wasn't going anywhere. Job's stable. Not easy, but stable." Rosa asked, "You ever report problems?" He laughed. "Once. The boiler room leak." "Did anyone fix it?" David shrugged. "Eventually." Rosa nodded. "You'd speak to me if I asked questions?" "Of course." She turned to Thomas. "He's one of dozens. They know this place better than your board does." "I believe that," Thomas said quietly. Later that afternoon, Rosa met with the kitchen team. 6 people. 1 break room. 2 chairs. She didn't introduce herself as a director. She just sat, opened her notebook and asked, "What don't you tell your supervisor?" That broke the silence. They talked for 40 minutes. About the old freezer that sparked. About the missing hazard gloves. About the woman who passed out last month but didn't clock out because she couldn't afford the penalty. Rosa listened. Wrote everything down. When Thomas joined them at the end, no one stood up. They didn't need to. He sat beside her. And listened too. That night, Rosa and Thomas stood in the hallway of the estate. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Yes." "You're going to dig up everything I missed." She looked at him. "You ready for that?" He didn't answer. She turned to leave. Before she reached the stairs, he said, "My mother used to write complaints on napkins. Stuff the drawer full. I never read them. Just thought she was tired." "She was," Rosa said. "That's why she wrote." The employee cafeteria on floor 3 wasn't where most directors spent their lunch breaks. But Rosa wasn't most directors. She sat alone at a corner table with her notebook, a black pen, and a name badge that said, Rosa Delgado, Employee Welfare. Across the room, a young woman carried 2 trays and sat down nervously across from her. "Hi. I'm Yvette," she said. "You asked to talk?" Rosa nodded. "Kitchen assistant. 6 months. Night shift. Right." Yvette's eyes widened. "You know that? I read every name on the payroll." Yvette smiled nervously. "No one's ever asked me anything before. I'm asking now." Yvette looked down at her tray. "I like the work, but last week, they cut our second break." "Why?" "Manager said productivity was low." "Did anyone complain?" Yvette shook her head. "We were scared." Rosa wrote something down. Yvette leaned forward. "Are you really going to change things? Or is this just another report that goes nowhere?" Rosa looked up. "You'll know soon enough." Back at her new office, Rosa met with the janitorial supervisor, a man named Curtis. Late 50s. Been there 15 years. "I keep losing people," he said. "They take better jobs. The ones who stay get overworked." "How many on your team now?" 12. "Should be 20. Did you request more hires?" "Twice. Got denied." "Why?" He shrugged. "No budget. Or so they say." "Got documentation?" He handed over a folder. "Schedules. 2 resignation letters." Rosa read each one carefully. "Curtis," she said, "how many nights do you work?" "All of them." She nodded. "You'll hear from me soon." That evening, Rosa and Thomas met in the estate library. He was reading a report when she entered. "Rough day?" he asked. "Efficient," she replied. "Uncomfortable for some." He set the paper aside. "What did you find?" "You have 3 broken time clocks. 1 in the mailroom. 2 in sanitation. Staff clock out manually, which lowers recorded hours. They're losing pay and don't know." Thomas frowned. "That's theft. Unintentional maybe, but real." He stood. "I'll fix it." "No," Rosa said. "I will. You'll sign off." He paused. "Okay." She handed him a printed page. "What's this?" "Emergency fund proposal. For employees in crisis. Short-term housing. Medical needs. Funeral costs." He scanned the paper. "You want to approve this directly?" "Yes." "What's the limit?" 10,000 per case." "That's a lot." "So is being homeless after surgery." Thomas nodded slowly. "You're right." She added, "And one more thing." "Go ahead." "I need space. Not just physical. I need you not to shadow me every day." He raised an eyebrow. "You think I'm hovering?" "I think you're trying to help. But this only works if I build it without you holding my hand." He leaned back. "Fair enough." "Also," she added, "move payroll out of HR. Give it its own office. Too many conflicts." "I'll draft it tomorrow." "No. Do it tonight. Before someone convinces you not to." He smirked. "Bossy." "Efficient," she replied. The next morning, Rosa met with the laundry staff in the basement. The air was hot. Humid. No ventilation. 5 women stood in front of her, unsure. Rosa said simply, "Talk to me." They hesitated. Then one spoke. "The machines overheat. We keep burning our hands." "Manager?" He said, "Wear gloves." "But they melt." Rosa narrowed her eyes. "You've been burned?" The woman nodded. Another showed a bandage. Rosa pulled out her phone and took photos. One woman asked, "Is this for HR?" "No," Rosa replied. "It's for me." At the end of the day, Rosa walked into Thomas's office without knocking. He looked up. "That's new." She dropped a file on his desk. "Read this." He opened it. Photos. Testimonies. Injury reports. One line item said, "Failure to meet OSHA laundry safety code, probable violation." He read in silence. When he looked up, Rosa said, "You want to fix this company? Start with the burn marks no one saw." He nodded. "I'll authorize hazard pay tonight. And order replacements." She turned to leave. "Rosa," he said. She stopped. "Thank you." She didn't reply. She just walked out and closed the door behind her. As Rosa stepped into the hallway, the weight of the day pressed down on her shoulders, not from fatigue, but from knowing how long these things had been ignored. She didn't head back to her office. Instead, she made her way to the staff break room on the lower mezzanine. No one expected her there. Inside, a few workers sat eating microwaved meals, scrolling their phones. Conversations fell silent when she entered. One woman looked up. "You lost." Rosa shook her head. "No. Just checking in." She sat beside them without asking. After a beat, one of the men said, "You're the lady who took those laundry photos, right?" Rosa nodded. "You know someone who works down there?" "My cousin," he replied. "She came home crying last week. Blisters on both hands." A younger guy across the table added, "My sister quit last year. Said nobody listened. Said no one cared." Rosa didn't flinch. "I care." The silence grew thick. Then the first man said, "You're the first suit who ever sat here." "I'm not here to wear a suit," Rosa replied. "I'm here to find what needs fixing, but I can't do that if no one talks." The man glanced around. "Then you should know the loading dock's elevator is broken half the time. Makes the guys haul crates 3 floors up by hand." Rosa scribbled in her notebook. The younger man added, "Security's understaffed at night. There's only one guy for 2 buildings." "Names?" she asked. They told her. She stood up. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, the woman who'd spoken first said, "If you keep showing up like this, they'll follow." Rosa paused at the door. "I'm not asking them to follow," she said. "I'm asking them to speak." The next morning, Rosa stood in the old records room of the Granger Tower. It was dusty, cramped, and lit by one flickering bulb. Beside her, a young intern named Marisol held a clipboard and sneezed twice. "Bless you," Rosa said without looking up. Marisol chuckled. "Is this even safe to breathe in?" "Probably not," Rosa replied, opening another file drawer. "But this is where the paper trails end up." They were looking for complaints. Old ones. The kind that got buried. "How far back should I go?" Marisol asked. 10 years. "That's a lot. Start with payroll discrepancies. Then workman's comp rejections. Anything labeled no follow-up." Marisol got to work. Rosa found a manila envelope labeled M. Griggs, slip/fall, loading dock. Inside was a single handwritten note. "No witnesses. Claim denied." No photo. No signature. No second page. She held the paper tightly. "Who was M. Griggs?" she muttered. Marisol looked up. "That name sounds familiar. I think his daughter works in sanitation." Rosa stood. "Let's find her." 30 minutes later, Rosa was in the sub-basement locker room. She found a woman in gray coveralls wiping down a bench. "Excuse me. Are you Teresa Griggs?" The woman looked up, startled. "Yeah. Why?" "I'm Rosa Delgado, Director of Employee Welfare." Teresa stiffened. "Am I in trouble?" "No. I found a report. About your father." The woman froze. "My dad died 6 years ago." "I know. There was an incident report. Slip and fall. No follow-up. It was never filed properly." Teresa's jaw clenched. "He broke his back. Couldn't work after that. We lost the apartment." Rosa swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not," Teresa snapped. "No one was. We tried to call. To ask for help. They told us he lied." "He didn't." "I know that." Teresa grabbed her mop. "It's too late now." "No," Rosa said. "It's not." Teresa didn't respond. Rosa handed her a card. "Come to my office at 4 p.m. We'll reopen the file. Full compensation. Backdated." Teresa didn't take the card. But she didn't throw it away either. That afternoon, Rosa marched into legal. 3 attorneys looked up, surprised. "I need a name," she said. "Who closed the Griggs file 6 years ago?" One of them, a man in a blue tie, cleared his throat. "That predates most of us." "Check anyway." The woman beside him opened a digital log. After a moment, she said, "Robert Levitt. He was head of compliance until 2020. Still with the company? No. Retired. Moved to Sarasota. Rosa nodded. Pull every case he closed without a witness statement or follow-up report. I want them on my desk by Monday. Are we reopening claims? Yes. The man in the blue tie raised an eyebrow. You realize that could be expensive. So was ignoring them. At 4 p.m. sharp, Teresa knocked on Rosa's office door. She didn't sit down. Rosa stood as well. I filed the case. You'll receive notice from legal this week. Teresa said nothing. I can't fix what happened, but I can make sure his name isn't forgotten. Teresa stared at her for a moment. Then she said, he was a good man. He worked double shifts to buy me a trumpet. And when he got hurt, I sold it to help pay rent. Rosa's eyes softened. I played saxophone in high school. Teresa cracked a small smile. Bet you were good. No, Rosa said. But I practiced hard. Teresa nodded. Thanks. This time she took the card. That evening, Rosa sat with Thomas in the den. He looked exhausted. You've been busy, he said. Good busy. He poured her tea. Anything I should know? She told him about the Griggs case. He listened quietly. After a pause, he said, there are probably more. Hundreds, Rosa said. Maybe thousands. He looked down at the tea. How did I never see it? Because no one ever asked you to look. He nodded slowly. And now? Now I'm asking. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Thomas said, what do you need from me? She met his eyes. Stay out of my way. And sign everything I put on your desk. He laughed softly. Deal. She stood up. I'm going back to the records room. He tilted his head. Tonight. There's more. Always is. Rosa paused at the door. You know, for a man who built an empire, you sure missed a lot. Thomas didn't argue. He just said, I'm trying not to miss what matters now. It started with a voicemail. A janitor named Alonzo had called Rosa's office the night before. He didn't leave his last name. Just a short, nervous message. There's a girl in security. Night shift. I think something bad happened to her last year. She doesn't talk about it. But someone needs to ask. The next morning, Rosa found her. Her name was Kendra. She was 23. Quiet. Kept her eyes on her clipboard and barely spoke when Rosa introduced herself. I'm just doing a check-in, Rosa said. Mind if I walk with you a bit? Kendra hesitated. Then nodded once. They made a slow loop through the quiet lower levels. After 5 minutes of silence, Rosa said gently, someone mentioned you had a rough time last year. You don't have to tell me anything, but if you ever want to, I'll listen. Kendra stopped. She didn't look at Rosa. Instead, she said, there was a man. Contractor. Said I wasn't smiling enough. Kept showing up where I was posted. One night, followed me to the loading dock. Rosa felt her hands clench. Did you report it? Tried. My supervisor said we didn't have evidence. Said I shouldn't make trouble. Rosa's voice stayed calm. Do you remember his name? Kendra nodded. Alan Reed. Still working here? She shook her head. He disappeared 2 months later. Rosa took out her notepad. Do you want me to file a report? Kendra's voice was barely above a whisper. Can you do it without making me the center of it? I can. Back in her office, Rosa pulled Alan Reed's contractor file. He'd been hired for a 6-month logistics role. No prior issues on record. But something odd stood out. His badge was deactivated 2 months before his contract ended. No explanation. She called IT. Who authorized the badge termination for Alan Reed? A moment later, they called back. It was flagged by compliance. A Robert Levitt directive. Rosa sat back. Levitt again. She picked up the phone and called legal. I need to speak with someone about workplace harassment procedures. The lawyer on the other end sighed. Is this about the Kendra thing? Rosa's blood went cold. You knew. There was silence. I heard rumors. But there was no formal report, so You let it slide. Rosa, we couldn't confirm. She cut him off. You didn't check. That afternoon, Rosa met with Thomas in the boardroom. She placed a folder in front of him. He opened it. Photos. Logs. Memes. This isn't just one case, Rosa said. It's a pattern. Thomas scanned the papers. 3 women. 1 man. All under 25. All complained to supervisors. And all were ignored. He rubbed his eyes. Tell me what you want. A real complaint system. Anonymous. External review. Cost. I don't care. He nodded. You'll have it. And, she added, I want every manager retrained. Mandatory sessions. Zero tolerance policy, signed and acknowledged. Done. Rosa didn't sit. She turned to the window. You ever think about how many people we've failed? Thomas replied quietly, every day now. Later that night, Rosa walked the building alone. She found herself in the stairwell between levels 5 and 6. She sat on the steps. The weight of what she'd heard was heavier than usual tonight. Footsteps echoed above her. It was Kendra. I got your message, she said. About the system you're setting up. Rosa nodded. It won't erase anything. But maybe it stops the next read. Kendra sat beside her. After a long pause, she whispered, no one ever believed me before. Rosa looked at her. I do. They sat in silence for a while. Just 2 women in a stairwell. One finally heard. One finally speaking. Kendra shifted on the step. Her voice was steadier now. I didn't tell my mom. I was ashamed. Thought maybe I was overreacting. You weren't, Rosa said. That voice in your head that said something was wrong? You should have been able to trust it and the system. Kendra blinked hard. I almost quit. Twice. But I needed the job. Rosa nodded. And you stayed. That takes more strength than most people ever realize. Kendra exhaled. Do you think, if this had happened to someone higher up, anyone would have listened faster? No, Rosa said flatly. They would have never let it happen in the first place. That silence again. Then Kendra asked, why are you doing this? Really? Rosa didn't answer right away. She stood, brushing off her slacks. Because someone once believed in me when I was invisible. And I swore, if I ever had the power, I'd make sure no one else stayed invisible again. Kendra stood too. Do you want to join the committee? Rosa asked. What committee? I'm building a task group. Internal voices. People like you. Who've lived it. Kendra hesitated. Won't people think I'm damaged? No, Rosa said. They'll think you're the one strong enough to tell the truth. Kendra looked at her, then nodded. I'm in. The next morning, Rosa sent an internal memo. It was short. To all staff. Subject, New Safety and Equity Task Force, volunteers welcome. Body, we are listening. And now we are acting. If you've ever felt overlooked, unsafe, unheard, this is your space. No titles. No punishment. No shame. We will protect your stories. And build something better from them. Rosa Delgado, Director of Employee Welfare. By noon, Rosa's inbox was full. Not with complaints. With stories. Real ones. A woman in accounting shared how her manager used to read her emails out loud and mock her typos. A delivery driver explained how he was blamed for packages going missing until cameras proved it wasn't him. A cafeteria worker admitted she'd been misclassified as part-time for years, even though she worked 40 hours every week. Some were heartbreaking. Some were infuriating. But all of them had one thing in common. No one had listened. Until now. At 2 p.m., Rosa walked into the old HR conference room. It hadn't been used in months. The chairs were mismatched. The whiteboard still had faded notes from a seminar on team synergy. She wiped it clean. Then she opened the door. 8 people walked in. Kendra was first. Then Alonzo, the janitor who'd left the voicemail. Yvette from the kitchen. Teresa from laundry. A young man from maintenance named Julio. A receptionist named May. And 2 warehouse workers whose names Rosa didn't even know yet. They sat in silence at first. Rosa didn't sit. I want to thank you for showing up, she said. Not everyone would. Alonzo raised his hand. What exactly is this? This, Rosa said, is a task force. But not like the ones with buzzwords and press releases. This one's different. How? Teresa asked. Because no one here is in charge. Not even me. They looked at each other. Kendra spoke. So what do we do? You tell me, Rosa said. What needs fixing? Julio raised his hand. The basement air ducts are full of mold. We've told 3 managers. Nothing's changed. May added, there's 1 bathroom on the entire east wing for women. Always locked. No key. Yvette leaned forward. Can we fix scheduling too? We don't know our shifts until Sunday night. That's not right. Rosa took notes. Every word. Every detail. When they paused, she looked up. We'll take these issues directly to policy, she said. No filters. No spin. Just truth. Will they listen? May asked. They will now, Rosa said. Later that week, Rosa sat in front of the executive board. 12 people. Mostly men. All watching her with tight expressions. I'm here to report on the new internal task force, Rosa began. One board member frowned. Without prior approval? This doesn't require approval, Rosa replied. It requires conscience. There was a pause. Thomas leaned back. Let her speak. Rosa handed out folders. Inside were statements. Photos. Testimonies. A few board members flipped through them. Others stared, unsure. This is what happens, Rosa said, when no one listens. The CFO spoke up. Rosa, you understand these are serious claims? I do. That's why I brought solutions too. She opened her own folder. Reclassification forms for miscategorized workers. Budget proposals for repairs. A plan for rotating anonymous audits. And a hotline, staffed by third-party advocates, not company employees. The room was silent. Then the legal officer said, this would take weeks to implement. Then start now, Rosa replied. That night, Rosa stayed late. She walked past the empty halls and paused outside the IT wing. There, on a bulletin board, someone had posted a printed copy of her email. It was underlined in red pen. We are listening. And now we are acting. Below it, someone had scribbled in black marker. Finally. Rosa smiled. The next morning, an envelope was slid under her door. No return address. Inside was a note. I've worked here 19 years. I was told to stop asking questions after a safety inspection disappeared. Thank you for not being afraid. Beneath it, a printed photo. A collapsed scaffolding rig from 2011. Rosa turned the note over. 2 names were written on the back. One was crossed out. The other circled. She picked up the phone. Marisol? Pull the 2011 site inspection files. All of them. By 5 p.m., Rosa had 2 full boxes of forgotten paperwork. She didn't stop to eat. Didn't stop to rest. She was building something. Not just a system. But a reckoning. Because someone had to listen. And someone had to care. And Rosa? She had decided to be both. Rosa sat in the basement archive room, the boxes stacked around her like silent witnesses. She'd gone through 8 folders already, each one telling a different version of the same story. Warnings ignored. Paper trails cut short. Safety violations marked as resolved with no action taken. The same names kept reappearing. Supervisors. Managers. And Robert Levitt. Again and again, his signature showed up on final decisions. She opened another file. A scaffolding collapse in 2011. 2 injured workers. No photos. No formal investigation. Just one note. Internal resolution complete. No further review necessary. Signed, Art Levitt. Rosa closed the folder. She picked up her phone. Thomas, she said when he answered, we have a problem. 10 minutes later, he joined her in the archive. He didn't sit. She handed him the folder. Read this. He did. Quietly. Slowly. When he finished, he let out a long breath. My God. It's not one incident, Rosa said. It's dozens. Maybe more. Every time someone asked the wrong question, he buried it. And no one stopped him? No one noticed. Thomas looked at her. You noticed. I wasn't supposed to. The next morning, Rosa requested an emergency session with the Internal Ethics Board. It was a small group, only 5 people, but they held power. She placed 10 folders on the table. All signed by Levitt. All involving unresolved harm. I'm not here to destroy a man's legacy, Rosa said. I'm here because we let one man become untouchable and people got hurt. The head of the board, an older woman named Denise, tapped her fingers together. Do you believe this was intentional cover-up? Rosa met her gaze. I believe he knew exactly what he was doing. Denise nodded. And now? I want an independent investigation. External. Full authority. And I want every victim notified. A silence followed. Then a younger board member said, if we open this, it won't stop at Levitt. I know, Rosa said. It's not supposed to. Word spread fast. By lunch, whispers were circulating in the break rooms. By evening, someone had leaked the folder labels, and employees began comparing stories. In the mailroom, 2 workers realized they'd been told the same lie 10 years apart, that a coworker's injury had been fabricated. In the shipping wing, Julio discovered a 2014 fire drill report had been doctored to cover a sprinkler failure. All across the company, small truths began unraveling a much bigger lie. Because now they had language. And now they had someone listening. Rosa received another anonymous letter. Inside was a single page. In 2016, a staff nurse filed a report about exposed wiring in the West Building. A week later, her contract was canceled. The wiring is still there. No name. No return address. But Rosa knew where to look. She walked the West Building's 3rd floor herself. Behind an unused storage room, she found it, a mess of wires, frayed and dangerously close to metal shelving. She photographed everything. Then she posted the image to the new internal network, the one her task force had helped build. She didn't add commentary. Just one sentence. They thought no one would notice. We did. The next morning, Thomas called her into his office. He was pale. He held a report in his hand. What is it? Rosa asked. He handed it over. Summary, 46 unresolved incidents. 31 listed under closed by Levitt. 12 resulted in injuries. 3 involved fatalities. Rosa read it twice. Then looked up. We can't hide this. I know, Thomas said. That's why I need your help writing the company-wide statement. Rosa nodded. I'll start now. That night, she sat alone in the task force room. The same mismatched chairs. The same whiteboard. Only now, the whiteboard was covered in charts, names, timelines. It looked like an investigation war room, because that's what it had become. Kendra walked in and handed her tea. You okay? She asked. No, Rosa said. But that's the point. We're not supposed to be okay with any of this. Kendra sat beside her. You think people will care? I think they already do. There was a beat of silence. Then Rosa said softly, they thought no one would notice. That's the part that scares me most. Kendra sipped her tea. Not anymore. Rosa nodded. Not anymore. The statement went out on a Friday morning. It was short. Not rehearsed. Not polished. Just truth. We failed. For years, we ignored voices that should have been heard. We signed off on harm. We looked away. We let power protect itself instead of protecting people. That ends now. Thomas Whitaker. No logo. No legal review. Just his name. Rosa read it 3 times before forwarding it to the task force. Kendra called 5 minutes later. He actually did it? He did. No PR filters? None. Kendra exhaled. It's quiet. That's what makes it loud, Rosa said. By afternoon, the message was taped to break room doors. Someone printed copies and pinned them next to time clocks. An old janitor, the same one who first tipped Rosa off about Kendra, pointed at the bottom of the page and smiled. First time that name ever meant something. Later that evening, Rosa found Thomas sitting alone in the executive lounge. No drink in his hand. No assistant hovering nearby. He was staring out the window at the dark city skyline. "You surprised everyone," Rosa said. He didn't turn around. "I surprised myself." "You could have denied it. Spun it. Blamed Levitt." "I thought about it," he admitted. "For about 6 seconds." Rosa sat across from him. "Why didn't you?" He looked at her then. And for once, there was no calculation in his eyes. "I remembered something my father used to say. The quietest thing you ever do might be the one people remember most." Rosa didn't reply. She didn't need to. The next week, the investigation began. External auditors. Whistleblower protections. Every folder Rosa had marked was reopened. Every voice that had been silenced was invited to speak again. Some still chose not to. But many came forward. Some in writing. Some in person. One by one, the truth poured out. And Thomas? He never gave another press statement. He didn't tour the sites or stand on a stage. He just showed up. He sat in task force meetings. Took notes. Listened. When a cafeteria worker said the food storage fridge hadn't worked in 2 years, he walked there himself and touched the warm metal door. When a former employee who'd been fired for insubordination came forward with evidence of retaliation, Thomas called her personally. He didn't apologize in speeches. He apologized in action. It wasn't perfect, but it was different. And people noticed. One morning, Rosa arrived to find a package on her desk. No name. Inside, a photo frame. It was a picture of the old break room, taken decades ago. 5 workers. All smiling. On the back, a note. One of these men died in that 2011 collapse. He had 3 kids. Thank you for not letting them be forgotten. Rosa placed it on her bookshelf, right between 2 policy manuals. She never mentioned it to anyone. Some truths she'd learned didn't need to be shouted. They just needed to be kept. Months later, the company rolled out the new name of their Internal Integrity Office. The Delgado Center for Worker Safety and Ethics. Rosa protested at first. But Thomas overruled her. "You're not being honored," he told her. "You're being documented. So no one forgets where the change came from." The plaque was small. The work wasn't. But every person who walked past it understood what it meant. Someone had cared enough to look. Someone had listened. And someone, quietly, had changed everything.